Before going into depth about the inherent narcissism present within liberalism, let us set the scene of an all too familiar verbal exchange in the modern world, the accusation and resultant condemnation of racism, despite nothing objectively racist being said. It's gotten to the point where racist is just interchangeable with bad, cruel, unsentimental, or unsympathetic. Such is the way of the modern individual that they have lost the ability to have rational debate and thus just see, hear, or feel what they want to see, hear, or feel about themselves or anyone else. So they make their mind up about you subjectively, even if what they claim about you isn't objective. They can trap you just by insinuating what they think you said, thought, or felt. If you didn't say something, you thought of something. And if you didn't think of something, you felt something. And if you didn't feel something, you have no empathy. In their mind, they then win the argument and feel better about themselves. Yet for them to have empathy, they would have to have a real sense of what you're feeling, which, if you're truthful, is not what they're claiming you feel. They are obviously narcissistic in this sense, and narcissism is basically just the opposite of empathy. It doesn't matter what you do from then on, because you have been branded as something, and that mark is indelible. An empathetic and intellectually honest person would want to engage in discussion and debate to find out why you did what you did in order to better understand you. Meanwhile, a narcissist will just say they are more empathetic than you and yet still refuse debate, especially once they have made their mind up. Never mind the burden of proof being on those who make the claim. What the narcissist thinks is apparently never wrong, and they hate the idea of listening to different perspectives that conflict with their own. As has been established, the liberal loves outer freedom or external openness, freedom of movement, for example. It's why they sometimes seem to have a foreseeable or borderline unhealthy obsession with travelling or wanderlust. The English-spirited liberal just doesn't particularly like to think or have their worldview challenged. That's why their thoughts and opinions hardly ever have any true depth and are so predictable. From an academic standpoint, it's at least acceptable and frankly encouraging if a liberal-minded person at least knows the origin of their philosophy and is well versed in some of its seminal thinkers, namely Locke or Rousseau. It's just a shame, or even a tragedy, that such studious types are all too rare in the world of today. The typical person doesn't really know what they believe philosophically and can't really articulate why they believe it. They just accept it as a given. Narcissists are often very good at mirroring what they think others want to see or mirroring what they think constitutes a good person. Hence, in the current era, narcissists are very good at virtue signaling, or seeming virtuous rather than being virtuous, creating a public perception of virtue for the mere benefit of one's ego rather than upholding virtue without feeling the need to desperately advertise it. But since narcissistic traits denote a lack of any real emotion, they are just slaves to what is popular in the public domain, and therefore highly malleable, perhaps without realizing it. They don't have any real thoughts or feelings for themselves that don't comply with groupthink, despite self-identifying as liberals, which is a contradiction. They get told what to think, or at the very least, what to think about, and they get told how to feel about what they think. Pure zealotry. Further emphasizing the pervasive culture of narcissism that permeates the modern world, let us focus upon the now universal currency of attention. Attention is the true capital at present. The way to boost one's economic status, social rank, and fame is through garnering attention. Social media dictates that attention is power in the 21st century. The number of online followers, likes, retweets, views, patrons, and subscribers matters now more than ever. In short, how many eyeballs can you have on you, your branding, your product, or your service? The more the better with this phenomenon. Fame is not necessarily achieved for good or positive reasons. Sometimes it is through a case of right place, right time, or even through shock factor infamy and petulance. One example of achieving overnight fame for publicly disgracing oneself is Danielle Bregoli, aka Bad Baby, perhaps better known as the Catch Me Outside How About That Girl, who first gained public attention in 2016 on the US daytime television series Dr. Phil as a wild, misbehaving, foul-mouthed and disrespectful teenager with a catchphrase that spawned a viral video and meme trend, propelling her into the realm of internet personality, and even launching a surprising music career of modest success. The most fascinating yet probably regrettable aspect of this entire scenario is how she managed to gain fame in the first place. Not through doing anything honourable or good as such. One does not need to be virtuous to be popular by today's standards. In fact, quite the opposite in many instances. But just by having her bad behaviour noticed, widely critiqued, criticised, typically for comedic effect, mind you, not genuine moral indignation, and all in all, basically glorified, unintentionally or otherwise, leading to something akin to the Streisand effect, like a train wreck that people couldn't ignore as much as they may have wanted to. Ultimately, Danielle Bregoli did nothing but attract a large amount of public attention with her antics. And that was all that was needed for her to now have an approximate net worth of $4 million within 4 years of her appearing on the scene. Absurd, crazy, uncivilized, and disturbing, but clearly strangely compelling for many. It was artist Andy Warhol who said, "In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. Through social media, the world of attention has been leveled to include everyone, when formerly it was only available and exclusive to those who were famous. Nowadays, given the right circumstances, anyone can become famous, and fame is no longer such a rarity. The level of abstraction has moved to the lowest plane, from the reality TV star to now the internet personality, or more precisely, the social media influencer. Attention is possible to achieve via just creating an account on a social media app, when previously one could only become substantially famous by doing something significant or through an association with someone who had done something significant. These days, in keeping with the characteristics of Narcissus from Greek mythology, the easiest way to gain attention is just to be physically attractive, either by drastically improving one's appearance or being blessed with beauty. Young and beautiful people who simply just take good quality photos of themselves but are otherwise typical can gain just as much or more attention posing as influencers than a person who is already renowned for a more traditional form of fame, be it through music, television, or cinema. Influencers may still become famous in the traditional real-world sense, with hordes of screaming fans at a meet and greet, but just as a sort of neo-celebrity. If you can attract enough attention, you can influence, and vice versa. But you may only be an influencer, not for anything earned or gained through a talent, just solely due to the attention you receive, relative to the number of eyes on you. You can advertise products or voice your opinions, and your followers may copy you. If you are already famous, even only marginally, you gain a head start in terms of attention, like inheritance from wealthy ancestry. Of course, you can still do something truly exceptional or unique as an influencer. It's just that many don't, because if they did, they'd be famous for that impressive thing more so instead. Primarily, it appears self-evident that social media has made both fame and attention easier to obtain. There is an attention dialectic which goes as follows: getting all the attention versus not getting any attention at all. Most people rest comfortably in the middle somewhere, achieving a level of balance and psychological stability. But at the extremes, the difference is startling. Those who have a virtual monopoly on attention can't go anywhere without receiving it. Those who don't get any can go seemingly everywhere, and very few, if anyone, will notice, and they can do so somewhat anonymous. But as demonstrated, all that can change in an instant, for better or worse. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of this whole phenomenon is the fact that quite often those who don't receive any attention crave it more than most, place more importance upon it, sometimes even more so than those who get more attention than they know what to do with. Both a blessing and a curse. Yet again, a Faustian bargain. One may crave attention and fame initially, but then burn out and regret the day they lost their normal life. Coincidentally, those with a deficit of attention are often the ones who literally orbit celebrities, hoping and praying that some of the attention will rub off on them. The sycophant may even reach a point of relative delusion where their level of idol worship is at such a dizzying height that they begin to personally identify with, or even as, their favorite celebrity. They see the celebrity's achievements or failures as their own, in a case of reflected glory. Loosely following the fortunes, trials and tribulations of your favorite celebrity, athlete, or sports team is innocent enough and has its fun aspects. But there is a line that can and does get crossed into stalking and other such disturbing things. One example in popular culture of toxic fandom has been all but immortalized in the song by rapper Eminem known as Stan. Released in 2000, the song's subject matter focuses on a crazed fan who passionately follows Eminem to the point of despair, sending him constant fan letters, just hoping and praying for a response. As the song continues, the level of intensity is raised, and the fan becomes increasingly jaded, even repeatedly abusive, at apparently being ignored. Some time passes and it becomes self-evident that the fan has serious mental health issues, ultimately leading to his demise. Meanwhile, Eminem is unaware of this and manages to eventually respond to the fan's letters in an apologetic and encouraging manner. But tragically, it is too late and all to no avail. Herein lies the dangers of idol worship taken to the extreme.